Ooh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Listen, the struggle was not red. I experienced it, being deprived, being oppressed, being confused. It's enough now, we're taking the power back. We're stronger than before, we're proud, too strong. The worst is over. From Cape to Cairo, Morocco to Madagascar. From Cape to Cairo, Morocco to Madagascar. Now listen, the struggle was not bad. I experienced it, being deprived, being oppressed, being confused. It's enough now, we're taking the power back. We're stronger than before. Proud, too strong. The worst is over. From Cape to Cairo, Morocco to Madagascar. From Cape to Cairo, Morocco to Madagascar.
Good evening. Good evening, South Africa. Good evening, Africa. Good evening, world. This is Monday evening, 6 o'clock. It means that it is the real dialogue. And I normally say this, I'm going to say it again. The two main purposes of these dialogues: number one, it is to capture the continent's change makers. Number one. Number two, it is to celebrate them. Those people that have given their lives, their gifts, their time, the best energies of their lives into serving Africa, and so we get to celebrate them on this platform for a number of reasons. Number one, because of the contribution that they have made towards making Africa a better place. That's number one. Number two, the reason they are our heroes and we celebrate them is because of how we feel about ourselves and what is possible when we look at them and what they've accomplished and what they have done. And thirdly, we celebrate them because of the hope that their lives infuse us with, about not just our lives, but Africa as well. And so today, I am having such son of the soil, one of the people that I personally admire and have admired over the years, and it has just been a pleasure for me to get to know him and speak with him and get to. There's depth, there's humility, there's impact, there's keen intellect, and ladies and gentlemen, sons of Africa and daughters of Africa, allow me to welcome Ndate Dr. Mosibudi Mangena, and there he is. He's just joined us. Ndate Mangena, good evening to you.
Thank you for having me.
And how was your day, sir?
Well, it is quiet under these days of COVID. Those of us over 65 have got to look after ourselves, be careful, stay home most of the time, venture out only when it is absolutely necessary. But otherwise, I'm okay, thank you.
Yeah. And look, we did speak earlier on. I understand that the day was also not necessarily entirely good, and you did have some unfortunate news that you had to listen. Once again, I'm sorry about that, and the loss of a friend that happened today. But you still came and honored this invitation, and we appreciate that. So.
Thank you.
Ndate Mangena, I'm not going to tell you the first time I got to know, I got to know about you, and but we will touch those. Of course, we know you, leader of Azanian People's Organization, Azapo, and the first Science and Technology Minister. We know the awards. We know currently you are honorary president of Azapo. We know all of those, and we will touch on those and the impact that you have made. But all of that must have started somewhere. All I know that there was once a little boy called Mosibudi Aaron, and he was born in Zanin. Take me through your childhood. What was it like growing up in the Mangena household? You know, where exactly in Zanin were you born? Talk to me through your formative years, if you will, Dr. Mangena.
Thank you very much. I'm the last of 7 children. And I still have a sister who is 90-something years old.
Wow.
In between are gone now. They are late.
Yeah.
We're born on a white man's farm, and there was no school. And I started school at the age of 10 in a mud church. And we had one teacher for all the grades. I think there were 3 or 4 grades in that church, in the mud church. And she will divide us up into small groups to give us work at different corners of the church so that we can get a little bit of an education. I don't think she was properly qualified. I don't know.
Yeah.
And just remember that, you know, I would go, when I go back home, I'll say, go, ba, ba, ble, she, any, yes, to barefoot. I had no clue what it meant. And when I recited that, the aunties would say, oh, listen to this kid, he's so intelligent and what have you, when they also did not understand what it was all about. And it is something that I regret with all my being, that black kids are being put through this thing. There is no kid in England or the US who will be required to recite such things that they don't understand. There were rhymes, you know, like Matsubane ngwana sesi a re sekolong. Tlhogo ke tlhapile, maoto ke tlhapile, letlapa le kae ruri ke le lebetse. It makes sense. If I said to I recited this rhyme to the aunties, they will understand, they will hear what I say. And it is only because I got a bit of education that my 2 children, my wife is a teacher, that my children would not have come home and said, Baba, ble, she, any. Yes, no. They would have recited something that they understand.
Sure.
So my parents, I don't know where they got they were farm workers on that farm. And during those days, 1947, when I was born, whites still acted like people that owned the land as well as the people that live on it. That my parents and other adults on that farm will donate 3 months of in every year of free labor to the white man. So real feudalists, you know. So that if there is work on the farm, then they will continue to work for the other 9 months to get very little. I don't know how much it was, but it was nothing. Yeah. And so that's where I grew up. But my parents had this wisdom of sending their children away to relatives. In Polokwane and Peters and Zanin are about 100 kilometers apart. So they would send us to go and stay with relatives so that we can get an education.
Yeah.
So it was that they also sent me at the age of 10 to Petersburg in the rural areas thereof, where some of my relatives on my mother's side stayed. So then for to happen, I've got to look after their cattle, their goats, their whatever, in exchange for going to school. But even then, the school was very far. So I went there at the age of 10 and started afresh, because I didn't even have a transfer. So start from Dom A at the age of 10. And as a result, I was a little bit behind other children, except that I cover up a bit. The school was something like, I know that I used to run, even from Zanin. All I can remember is that it was very far to walk, because it was on the same farm, it was on another farm. So we walked a lot to that school, through paths, footpath. Yeah. And the school in Petersburg was also far. We ran a lot to that distance for that school. And so it was that when I was in standard 4, I had to move now, because my parents had moved. My older brothers had decided that my parents must leave from that farm. My older brothers, who had been sent to school in Petersburg, as it was called then, were now working. And they decided that they are going to take our parents and all of us away from the farm to a freehold area around Pretoria, a place called Valmanstal, which is now an army base, because people were removed once more from that. So because I was getting things right at school, when I moved from Petersburg to Pretoria, my principal in Petersburg promoted me one class higher.
And you needed that catch, and you needed that catch up, right?
Yes, I needed the catch up.
Yeah.
And even though I was catching up, with straight from standard 4 to standard 6, and our class teacher seated us in by March. When we come in in January, we sit anyhow. But by March, after we had written some tests, we are now seated according to how we achieve. So then I was sitting right in front. Yeah, and there are in Sepedi, we also have dialects. As I know that in the Xhosa language there are also dialects. People who speak Pondo and others who speak. And so the kind of Sepedi that I spoke from Petersburg was funny to people in Pretoria. So they used to laugh at me at the kind of Sepedi that I spoke. But after 2 months, I was doing so well that this boy with funny Sepedi was now sitting right in front. So it remained until I finished that standard 6 and passed with a first class. And so I was now living with my parents and no longer with the relatives that I stayed with in Petersburg. So I went to secondary school in Pretoria in Valmanstal, and passed what was called junior certificate then, with distinction. And I was student number 2 in the whole republic.
Wow.
Yeah, and
I didn't know that, but it makes sense.
And then went on to a boarding school in Pretoria North called Hebron Training Institute, where we were taught. The teachers were Afrikaners, almost all of them. And the boarding master and everybody were Afrikaners, except for teachers of African languages, Setswana and Sepedi. But otherwise were taught by Afrikaners who looked down on us a hell of a lot. And that was at the time when Botswana was getting its independence. And so it was being decided that Tswana and Pedi-speaking students cannot be in the same school. We should be separated. So that school, those of us who spoke Sepedi were the last. We were being phased out. And we were being every, especially December holidays, but sometimes June holidays, were being recruited to go into camps, to go and be taught by SAPRA, the South African Bureau for Racial Affairs. Yeah, by guys who are now in this place where only Afrikaners in the Northern Cape.
Yes, yes. I'm sure we'll remember it. Yes.
Yes.
Orion.
Pardon?
Is it Orion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or Orania.
Orania, rather. Yes, Orion. Orania. Yes.
Orania.
Orania.
That place ran Sabra, and they were going to high schools to indoctrinate African children about their ethnicity and how they should be proud of their ethnicity, how they are separate from other people. I went to such a place. At that year, we were taken to University of the North, which is now the University of Limpopo. And to be taught how to be a good Pedi person, and we complained, but we were in kind of, it was not clear to us that this is wrong, but somehow we felt that it is not right because we knew one another. And in Valman, you'll find all ethnic groups in Valmanstar. Zulu-speaking people, Xhosa-speaking people, Shangaan-speaking people, Pedi-speaking people, we were all together, And so this thing that we must now go our separate ways was weird, was strange.
I can imagine.
But why do you do this? Asking these Afrikaners who are doing this thing to us, why are you doing this? They say, no, this is good for you. And I remember that when we finished matric at Hebron Training Institute, they had a farewell party for us. It was a kind of culture of that institution. And I was chosen to speak on behalf of the departing matriculants. And among other things, whilst thanking our teachers, I decried the fact that they are trying to separate us. And remember one day, the principal, said the boys' toilets were blocked. And so he had said that the boys must remain at the assembly as the girls went away. And he addressed the boys and said that if at our homes we are using stones and everything else to clean our behinds when we go into the toilet, and that's we shouldn't do it. He says like a break, all rande, goede, kleppe, and so we tried that fact at that farewell party. Also, the fact that our teachers drove from Pretoria North, which was about, say, 30 kilometers,
Sure.
the school every day. They even have had lifting clubs. And they were getting paid tolerance fee, teaching children of African children. Yeah.
Wow.
Tolerance. But they called it a tolerance fee. And I said that they taught us well, but they were only tolerating us. They didn't love us as much as they should love children. So
Sure.
yeah, and it caused me some problems. Fortunately, they didn't expel me, but there was some kind of toast amongst the students, you know.
How so?
Pardon?
How so?
Yeah, they were. I told the truth as they understood it. It was something that subliminally understood, but it was never verbalized.
Sure.
You know, and yeah. So for the first time, it was verbalized and so on, and a lot of things that they were doing. For example, you know, at the boarding, more often than not, there was no warm water, even in winter. But they were just not doing it properly, you know.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah. Imagine showering with cold water. There were geysers fired by coal, but somehow sometimes there's no coal, and sometimes there is no water. The water came from boreholes in the schoolyard, but sometimes it was not functioning properly, and so on. So they were good teachers, but they were simply just tolerating us.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And unlike other schools, in that school, for example, there was a laboratory where we could go and do, because I was doing physical science, for example,
yes,
and with the biology. Although we did biology in Afrikaans, biology, you know.
Yeah.
Before the 1976 lot came and complained. So when some of us hear about the 1976 lot complaining about being taught in Afrikaans, we had there, so I could empathize very much with them. And that biology in Afrikaans was tough, you know, was really tough.
Of course.
Yeah. And so that's my high school education. And then, of course, after passing matric, I had wanted to be an engineer, a mechanical engineer.
Okay.
So I applied to Wits because at the time, that was the only university, I think, together with the University of Cape Town, who accepted Africans to do engineering. But in order to go there, you have got to apply to the Minister of Bantu Education at the time for permission to go and study at Wits. So I applied to Wits, and they said, you need a letter from the Minister of Bantu Education giving you permission to come and study at this university. And so I went to the principal, got the particulars, and wrote a letter of request to the Minister of Bantu Education. And the reply came back and said, you have got to go to a Bantu university first and do all those courses that engineering students do in the ordinary faculty of science. And in my case, it means I had to finish all courses in chemistry, in physics, and in maths and applied mathematics before I could go to Wits. But that meant if I went to a black university, so-called Bantu University, and I finished, that would take me, if I was passing right through, it will take me 3 years. Then the engineering degree takes 4 years. So I go, it's only then that I go to VETS, and the 4-degree engineering work will take me 7 years.
Yes.
Not 4. So I applied to go to the University of Zululand. I had applied to Fort Hare University because I love Fort Hare, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
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 But there was some kind of rebellion in my being, which was not well articulated, was not clear yet, but it was there. I mean, being barely speaking, I should not apply to go to Fort Hare. So I applied to Fort Hare for admission to do a BSc degree. The forms came back, and there was a section that wanted you to state what ethnic group you are. And because I knew I would not be admitted at Fort Hare if I said I was Pedi speaking, I wrote Xhosa. But now my guardian, who was my brother, because my father was late already.
Yeah.
My brother, who was my guardian, had to sign. So he looked at the forms and he said, "No, you are not Xhosa." Yes, I said to him, "No, don't worry about these things. You know, it is these guys, they are just trying to oppress us and so forth." He says, "Yeah, but this is fraud. I understand all these things about the Boers being Boers and oppressing us, but you can't write Xhosa when you are not Xhosa. It's fraud." So I couldn't send the forms away. And when the time came, universities were opening, I had nowhere to go. So some of my friends in Mamelodi were going to the University of Zululand. So I packed my trunk and told my brother that, please allow me to go to the University of Zululand. And he said, "But they won't admit you. You're not Zulu." I said, "Let me go and try." So he said, "Okay, go." And there I went together with my friends from Mamelodi. They had letters of admission, which I didn't have. And when I got there, I produced I tried to register. I told the clerks there that I don't have admission. And they said, "No, you must go to the registrar. You fill in the forms and you go to the registrar." And the registrar, a certain dude, looked at my results and said, "Okay, you are in." That's it.
And it is that trip there that would change the course of your life to Durban. And then your I mean, you had already been, feeling, as you were saying, some sense of, rebellion, but there was no proper articulation of it. And now talk to me about how that social reawakening, as it were, happened, because it happened there in Durban.
Yeah, and Ngoya is some 300 kilometers north of Durban.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. And it's called it's a small town called KwaDlangwesa. And so it was subliminal, growing up, seeing your parents on a white man's farm, them having nothing every 3 months, and so on. And Valmanstal, at the time, they were trying to remove us. And in Polokwane, where I was staying with my uncles and aunts and looking after their cattle and so on, they were being removed forcefully into small places. Their fields that were plying were being reduced in size. The number of cattle were being reduced from whatever number to 5. Every household was not allowed to have cattle of more than 5 in number, and so for that there was just and then at my high school there were these teachers who were like the way they were, and so it was that SASO was starting, and people like Herinengwe Kulu, Strini Moodley, Seth Cooper, Charles Sibisi, Biko, and others were frequenting the campus. Talk about about SASO, the fact that Black students have got to form their own organization. That champion the cause of freedom for Black people and what have you. So it just clicked. I didn't even have to think about it. It just gelled in my head. No time with my emotions and everything, and threw myself into its activism in no time. Without a second invitation, and that's where I met Strini, the people that I remember, Strini and Charles CBC, and Nico for the first time. And we clicked. And we clicked.
I mean, you would be in your early 20s now by this time.
Yes, I was 25.
Yes. And now, before I leave, just on the edge, what were you registered for at school?
I was registered for a BSc. In chemistry, maths, physics, and applied mathematics.
Which you would, of course, later finish at Robben Island.
For engineering, because at that time I still wanted to be an engineer.
Yes.
I was fascinated by everything that moves. Bicycles, how do they move? How do aeroplanes fly? Why are ships floating on water and so on? Why do they think and so on? That kind of thing. That I was really fascinated by this and wanted to take it forward in my adult life. But so it was that towards the end of first year, I passed all my courses, all this physics, maths, applied maths, and chemistry. And in the second year, at the end of the first year, I was because I was active in SASO, I was elected to the Student Representative Council.
All right.
And I was the treasurer. The president at the time was Mthuli Gashes, who is killed. I was treasurer in that, but then I became unpopular because I represented the science faculty. At the science faculty, you met racism at its rawest. They would tell us when we come in that, as first year students, that you are too many. Say we will be something like 50 in a lecture room. And they'll say you are too many. And they'll tell us that by the end of the year, only about 10 of you or 15 will be remaining. Racism was palpable in the and those all our lecturers and professors, they came from University of Pretoria, Potchefstroom, Stellenbosch, and so on. And even then, not the brightest. Among them will be our lecturers, and who will correcting them every now and then and so forth. And their English was poor. English was extremely poor, and then I was the one who would carry the complaints to the dean of the faculty every now and then. So I was a cheeky black to them, And what made things worse was that that December in the second year,
Sure.
after the university closed, I had written an article for the SASO newsletter, which was criticizing foreign investment in the country, saying it bolsters and it props the oppression of Black people. It fosters exploitation of cheap Black labor and so on. So this was published in the SASO newsletter. And then this was picked up by the Daily Mail. I think that was what it was, the Daily News. That was what it was called. And then the university saw this thing. So when we came back in June of that year, the head of the faculty told me that I was called, the rector of the university, a certain DVET, wanted to see me. And when I he asked me where I was during the holidays, and I told him, no, I was at home in Pretoria. He says, no, man, don't lie to me. I said, why would I lie? He said, no, you wrote you're talking to the newspapers. I said, no, I didn't talk to any newspaper. Then he pulled out the thing and he showed me. He said, no, I wrote an article to the SASO newsletter. And as you know, we are affiliated to SASO. So I wrote to SASO. He says, yeah, but here it says you are a student at the University of Zululand. So you have put the name of the university in disrepute, and we will not tolerate that. I said, but I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't know the newspaper will pick it up. It's not my fault and so on. He says, no. You are on notice. And that year, I failed all the 3 subjects, because now it says you go up. The first year you take 4, second year 3, third year take 2. So I failed all 3: mathematics, applied mathematics, and physics, with 49, 48.
I know those.
Yeah. And you know, as a science student, when you have passed, you know.
Sure.
You know. Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
You know that. And to matter, I had never failed my life. That was the first time. That yeah. So I told my brother that there's no point in going back to the University of Zululand, because they failed me deliberately.
Yeah.
And he said, no. I said, no, they failed me deliberately. I know that. He also knew that I never failed. And all of them, 48, 49%.
Yeah, enough, close enough. Now, look, we're gonna have to expedite a bit now. Of the people, and because soon we then, and then there's a bit of the next time I find in that Mangena, especially with his education journey, is I see him at the Robben Island, of course, finishing your BSc and your BSc honors at the Robben Island, and so but a lot must have happened before. I mean, between what you've just shared now and you being in the Robben Island, and some of the people that, of course, you met there. Not at Robben Island, but there in school, Biko and Tiro. I've told you before, one of the reasons Tiro is of interest to me is it's quite fascinating that he an active member of where I belong in terms of religious affiliation, the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I've said that to you, that we were not, and sadly still are not, at least corporately, the most socially involved and or socially conscious, especially during those times. But Tiro was, and so I do want you to reflect on your interactions with him and him as a person, if you can, and of course your interactions with Biko as well, Bantu Biko. Those two, if you could.
Okay. No, then I left. I left the university and registered with the University of South Africa to finish my PhD. And so I was studying from home. But it was 1972.
Yes.
These guys were being expelled from universities, were working towards the formation of the Black People's Convention. And so I was asked to mobilize for the Black People's Convention in the Pretoria area where I was staying.
Sure.
And so I didn't even write. Although I registered, I didn't write examinations.
Sure.
So in December, I was elected national organizer of the People's Convention. And our offices were based in Johannesburg. Now, during 1972, we were having many workshops and conferences and meetings with people like Biko, Bani Pichana. So I'd not met at that point. I'd not met Nkoputsi. I did not know him of his existence. So even in Hammanskraal, as far as I know, he was not present because I didn't see him.
Sure.
Then these people were expelled, and Hero was at the center of this expulsion, and he was moving around, mobilizing students and communities. He was teaching at a school in Soweto. And I was together with Mengwe Kulu. Mengwe Kulu was the permanent organizer of BPC. I was not FASO, and I was an organizer of BPC. And Tiro was elected organizer of Southern African Student Movement, SASM. And so the three of us as organizers used to meet quite a lot in the SASO offices in Pretoria. And we will share notes about where I'm going, where is he going, what kind of problems are we facing, and so on. And then, of course, we met even socially and so on. He was straight down the line. And, as young people, we were stoked. We were doing all sorts of things, but he was strict, upright. And and what we thought he was really uptight. He wouldn't do the kind of thing we were doing, sipping alcohol, and things like that. He wouldn't be doing that. And trying to raise girls, he wouldn't do that. And straight down the line and highly principled, and so you wouldn't want to do, even though we were more or less the same age, you wouldn't like to do something that Tiro will not approve of.
Wow.
And so we met and we shared notes a hell of a lot. At that time, all I knew was that he was this militant fellow, and that he was he uncompromising. And I knew that he was going to some of the congregations in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, pushing Black consciousness in the as well. And with Biko then and Tiro and them, most of the time we were not meeting at campuses, but at seminars and conferences that we were having frequently in different places. And it was during this period when I was a national organizer that and and Jinko was banned then and restricted to King Williamstown. And I was organizing by train. You bought a ticket that will take me from, I don't think those kinds of tickets already exist anymore. I'll buy a ticket that will take me from Johannesburg. I get off the train in Kroonstad, spend a few days, get onto the train again, go to Kroonstad, to Welkom, spend a few days, go to Bloemfontein, spend a few days, get onto the train straight to Port Elizabeth, spend a few days, organizing branches for the Black People's Convention. Where when I got to Port Elizabeth, that's where I was arrested for the first time. Seriously. Yeah.
That's my hometown, by the way. I'm sorry.
Then up the coast, to Grahamstown, and then up to King Williamstown, and that complex, East London, King Williamstown, Alice. And Biko was restricted to King Williamstown. And we had the Black People's Black Community Development had given him a vehicle. He was working for them, a Kumbi. And Malosi Mpumulwana, who is now Secretary General of, was my driver. Around
wow.
I didn't have a license then. So we will drive around that complex. Alice, we go to Fort Hare, to FETSEM, to Federal Theological Seminary there, where I would organize students into SASO, then to Fort Hare, then to Zwelicha, to what is because Ginsberg, and then to East London, the complex there. We will drive around Duncan Village. I understand it's still the slum that it was then.
Sadly,
not there now.
Sadly,
So we would organize, and after that, then I got onto the train again to go to Mthatha, Kokstad, and then off to Pietermaritzburg, back to Johannesburg, and then start again. And so during that time, I would meet Mapetla Mohapi, who was then in Zwelicha, and we will work and share notes and organize parties and so on. But all the time organizing people into the organization. And on my return, I was then arrested, sent back to PE to stand trial. I was detained in Woma police station for 3 months, and then taken to Grahamstown for trial. Mapetla was there. Mrs. Winifred Khware. Mrs. Khware was the only person on for the defense who gave evidence on behalf of the defense. And then off to Robben Island after being sentenced to 5 years. And I'm the first Black consciousness person to land on Robben Island. And then the next person was Nkutsu Mutsau, who is now late. And then the third person was Eric Mulobi, who I had not met. I was meeting for the first time. And he told me he was friends with Onkoputse. He was in the Seventh-day Adventist Church too. And he was conscientized by Tiro. And he told me about how Tiro turned around elders in the church and priests and so on, who then started pushing the ideology within the church, and the dignity of Black people was uplifted during that period,
Sure.
He, because Tiro had skipped the country in 1974, Eric Mlobi used to go into Botswana every now and then to go and see him. And even after he was blown up, he went there with Tiro's parents and family to go and identify him. And he talked about how all they could identify him with was his forehead, which was very prominent and so on. Because everything else, the hands and the front of his body was all blown off by that bomb. And again, Eric Mlobi, when he got to Robben Island, and I was trying to teach him about prison life. And amongst other things, I was saying that he must eat pork because he has got to survive, you know? Yeah. Pork is the dominant meat in prison. I was saying to him, what are you going to, you've got to have protein. And they had damaged him when he says they were beating him with open palms, you know, around the chest. And so X-rays had revealed that there were blood clots all around his chest because they were using the palms to hit him all around the chest. And I was saying, you've got to survive. And I was saying, God will understand. That you've got to survive in this. He said he will not do it. And he will give me his pork, and on days that we were having eggs, I'll give him eggs and say that there are some eggs. And the days on which we get chicken, I'll give him part of my chicken, so that he can regain his strength and the body can recover from the torture that it has gone through.
Sure. But again, I'm gonna skip you in exile, being the commander-in-chief, and then you come back, of course, as the leader of Azapo. And then 1994 happens, and we're not going to reflect on that time because this is really about you, the person. And then of course the next step. Oh, by the way, so you finished your BSc while at Robben Island and your honors, right? While at Robben Island. Oh, okay,
no.
Not.
Because you see, when you get there, you are classified D, and Ds are not allowed to study.
Okay.
Yeah. So they've got to promote you to C. And when I managed, I was reclassified to C, and I was allowed to study.
Okay.
So I wrote to my folks. They registered me with UNISA so that I can continue.
Okay.
But mid-course, I was punished. They demoted me to D. So they took away my book. So it's only on release, when I was banned and restricted to Mahwereleng Township in Limpopo, that I finished my BSc and BSc honors.
And your honors. And your masters, you finished them while you were in exile in Botswana.
Yes, but I had already started here.
Okay.
So when I went to Botswana, I was midway. So I finished, and when I finished, my lecturers, especially external ones, were pushing me to do a doctorate. Because I done so well. But then my comrades said, no, you can't do that. Because when you are studying, you become, you have habits and routine. You've got to go to the university, to go and to the library and so on. And you can't afford, if you are a person in exile, you can't have routine. Even if I was finishing my BSc, my masters, they were very uncomfortable.
Yeah. You don't want to be too predictable. Yeah. Yeah.
So I
You
was
don't want to.
with academics at the University of Botswana. So every now and then I have to go and see them.
Sure. Now, yeah. Deciding to discuss about your work, like I mean, you are an academic. You're also wearing you are a writer, author. Have written many books and essays, and then of course you have led in politics as well, and then you of course you also served in the education department as a deputy minister, and then but I think you were thrown into the right when you were also the first science and technology minister, and maybe let's start as a writer. As I've mentioned, I mean, I've got some books here: A Quest for True Humanity, A Twin World, My Grandmother is Permanent, Let the Patriots Stand Up, and Apartheid Fault Lines, and of course many other essays. How do you decide? This is the subject that you're gonna write about, and how does that process look like? And like children, do you have any particular favorite project in your books? You said this. I love all my books, but this one is more special.
Yeah, the most special one is Triumphs and Heartaches. When I came back,
Sure.
partly because it was one of the most challenging periods in a different sense. Being asked that we have got to move our economy into a knowledge economy. And so you've got to head this department that must take this country in that direction. That must promote innovation, must promote research, must promote science and engineering and so on in our universities. And so you have this kind of department. In Triumphs and Heartaches, I dwell on how we went about doing this, establishing this department and making it functional, and the strides that we were making, and up to today, I find I'm extremely proud of that particular period, and it was building on the work that I was doing at the Department of Education as Deputy Minister of Education, responsible for maths and science education, because as going to schools and saying to Black children in particular that you've got to master maths and science. That these are gateway subjects that will help you, and that's where we fall short as the Black community. And the white establishment has been promoting this amongst their kids, and we were shortchanged. And this is your opportunity. And that stop complaining that you are discriminated against, that you are disadvantaged and so on. I used to tell them about how I started school in a mud church, and I show them their classrooms, even if their classrooms are dilapidated, and that this is heaven compared to a mud church, where the teacher, there is only one teacher, and that we cannot be victims forever. Victim will not build us, and we have got to pick up the cudgels and make ourselves better people. And how, having started school in that mud church, here I am, first Minister of Science and Technology in the Republic. And my parents were farm workers, and most of your parents were not farm workers. And that you can do it. And So even with, strange enough, even with academics at universities, they really don't believe that we can transform this economy into a knowledge economy. That we will just dig holes in the ground, take out the minerals and send them elsewhere. They will just look after cattle and kill them and send the money elsewhere. That we can manufacture technologically advanced goods and services. There's no reason why we can't have a cell phone of our own, a car of our own. And as a result, I challenged our engineers and our academics at universities that let's make a South African car. And indeed it was made, the Jew. And what pains me most was the fact that after we left, they dropped it. When we watched it in Paris, it was the most beautiful car amongst electrical cars there. And as we are speaking now, electrical cars are becoming more and more prominent. And by now, we would have been very far. South Africa is going to adopt electrical cars going into the future. And we are going to be getting these multinationals like Mitsubishi and Ford and BMW to come and make those cars, and we buy them. And we pay, in addition, we pay them to make cars here. Millions of rand. You know, these cars that are running around here, Toyota and so on, all those companies have got to be subsidized by South Africa to manufacture here. And if we don't, they move out. And we have an opportunity to make our own. But the problem is a colonial mentality. That we don't love ourselves enough. We don't believe that we can do it. That's why we can strip the railways. You know, now we strip the railways naked, the stations, destroy them. So it's painful, extremely painful.
Now, one of the things, look, personal testimony. One of the things, as a boy growing up in the townships in Port Elizabeth, that attracted me to Black consciousness. Two things. Even though it was a bit fuzzy each time I would come across and read anything on or about Biko, were these two tenets. Number one, of Black self-reliance, Black excellence, and now, as somebody who was there at the very beginning, and somebody who has been blessed enough to still be alive now, there is a question that Bayanda asked, Doctor, may you please provide your comparative reflections, observations between the student social movements of your time and of this time?
They are the same.
Sure.
They only live in different time span and time period. You see, when during our student days, we were oppressed by white people, and we were being called names and so on. We didn't have political power. We were being discriminated against. So we had issues, and we suffered from inferiority complexes. I had before then, I didn't mind being called Aaron, and now I do. I'm Mosibudi, you know. I didn't like the way I looked. Now I know I like the way I look. And we went out, and our sisters were using Ambi and so forth to something that was dangerous, and they were using hot bricks to straighten their hair, and we were saying you don't have to. And we were saying that you don't have to have another name other than Sivu, you know? Feel that you are a Christian, that you don't have. Christianity has nothing to do with you changing your name. That's what we're doing in Black theology and so on. Yeah, and we're saying that God loves us all. He made us equal. And this inequality is caused by human beings who are behaving badly and so on. And that we are equal to any person in the whole world. So those were issues that were facing us. Our young people now who are involved in Peace Must Fall movement have a different set of problems. They are not getting enough money at the universities so that they can carry on their universities. I mean, their university education. And the regime, the government is not providing enough scholarship so that they can study in peace, coming from poor families as they do. They face other issues now, drugs. They face HIV. They face so these are the problems of their time. I can't say to them, here is this is the way you have got to deal with your issues of HIV. I never had to deal with HIV. I didn't have to deal with the drugs and so on. Yeah. So they've got to deal with this thing. And they are standing on our shoulders. We got rid of white oppression and discrimination in its rawest form, in its most wicked form. But it is not gone. It's not there. So they are taking the struggle forward. And I wish they can push even harder. And oppression or discrimination does not give without demand. They have demanded that we should support their education. And we have yielded, but we have not yielded enough. They must push it harder. This country is theirs to take into the future. They are our leaders now. Some of us are crawling towards the grave. And so we have done our bit, but we have also messed up. And I want to see them standing up to fight against corruption, against sleeves, against stealing, and so on. These are problems of their time. And they did not seek permission from us. We didn't seek permission from our parents. And for example, when we were in Saso, my mother, although when I told her about what I was doing, she said she agreed, she understood. She worked on that farm, you know. She understood. But she said, my son, you are not Jesus. You know, you can't carry the world on your shoulders. Look at the other children are just going to school, they are going to work, and you are running around thinking that you can change the world. You can't. She didn't agree, although in the end she saw the way she supported. It is the same with them. They must not ask for our permission in order to show the wrongs that we are doing, because it's painful to me now. We have dropped the ball, you know. We have degraded the dignity of Black people, because now everywhere you look, it is this person in position of responsibility in the public eye, in the public domain, who we look up to, who our children look up to, who is proven to have feet of clay. They are stealing, you know. It should not be Black people are known for stealing, for sleaze, for corruption. No. So they should refuse. They should say, no, this is not us.
And that is the message of Black consciousness.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Ndade Mangena, let me Debbie Oliver from Stellenbosch University says, maths and science education focus, so important. Thank you, Dr. Mangena, for emphasizing this. His words corroborates that we are on track. That's quite naughty and quite witty of Debbie. They are running a science intervention program at Stellenbosch University called TRACK, And that's why this would I'm sure resonate with her. And somebody just mentioned great political activist. We cannot be victims forever. Victimhood has never helped anyone. That is Amata Yem there. And Mandela Ken Jamela says, we are having a lovely history class here. And Ali Danzenze reflecting on what you just said, God made us equal, and we have degraded the dignity of Black people. It is very sad. Our children say, but those that are in power are Black. What's the problem? Maybe the problem is that it is not Black conscious Blacks.
I've got a manuscript, and if all goes well, it will come out early in the year, and hopefully it will be my last book. And the working title is Fixing Our Heads. If we can just fix our psychology, wiring in our heads, and if we believed in one another, if I'm a policeman, I'm in Duncan Village.
Sure.
And my relatives, my family, my neighbors, my community know I'm a policeman. But crime is rampant. Women are being abused, children are being abducted, and so on. But we do nothing, and I'm a policeman. Where's my pride?
Sure.
Where's my pride? And you might not like Afrikaners in as far as their perpetuation of apartheid is concerned and so on. But they were a proud people, you know? They proud. Yeah. And they are proud of their language.
Sure.
They are proud of, they want to, their own schools.
Sure.
So that they can impart their values to their own children. Why can't we do that?
Sure.
Why can't we? Now that we are in power, we control the budget, including the education budget. Why can't we build good schools?
We can't internally blame apartheid for that. Surely.
Yeah, and our children have got to wake up and walk to the nearest school.
Sure.
Not a good school. A good school. And not have to run away from their community.
Sure.
From the teachers who are on their aunts and their neighbors and their fathers and mothers. They've got to be taught there. When I was
okay, let's transition a bit. On. Look, we're gonna have to later on, of course. And I know that he's also one of your heroes. You've said that before while we were in one of our conversations, that Sobukwe is one of your heroes. So we will reflect on that later on. And now let's transition. Dr. Mangena, the Africa that you dream about, the Africa that you hope, if it is not you, and it looks like it might not be you, at least your children or your grandchildren might one day get to live in. How does it look like? Number one. Number two, what do you think stands between that Africa and us realizing it?
Again, even on the African continent, Black consciousness or African humanism is what we need.
Sure.
And we should snap out of that and take our own destiny in our own hands.
Be our own liberators.
We must be our own liberators. As you know, I did work with, I had read, even before I became politically conscious, I had read about Sobukwe. And I've met people, you know, as a small boy, people talking about Sobukwe and what a great man he was. And when I got into SASO, then learned read now properly
Sure.
his ideas, although there's no book that he himself has written.
Sure.
Very people. And you know, up to today, whenever I speak to Thabo Mbeki, he is saying he belongs to another political party and so on. But we are in
Sure.
but we are in And one thing I don't doubt about him is that he's an African, hard-boiled African, you know. He wishes for the best as far as this continent is concerned.
Sure.
And he did his best.
Yeah.
And whenever I went into Africa, I chaired the African Ministers of Science and Technology. I chaired them, and I traveled around the continent, going to Mali, to Timbuktu, and he's the one that encouraged me and gave me permission, because I was a minister in his government then, to go to Mali, to go and help them to preserve those manuscripts. And whenever one went, Africans were saying the African president is Thabo Mbeki.
Oh man.
Because he was trying to get us to stop killing one another, to stop the wars, to focus on democracy, on ensuring that we live in peace with one another, that the gods are silent, and what we lift our personality as a people, as a race. And that he went to many fora around the world. It might be the United Nations, it might be the group of 20 or whatever the case might be. He will push the agenda of the African continent. And that's why, amongst other things, he supported science and technology. That unless we work hard to improve ourselves in science, technology, research, we will not be able to improve the lives of our people. Build industries, manufacture goods and services with that will be of value to our people. So I want to see an Africa that is proud of itself, that lives in peace, that comes to its own, that is able to provide clean water to its children, its sons and daughters, you know, that builds hospitals and schools, and that looks after its culture and its languages and so on, that is able to contribute to the world in as much as the rest of the world is contributing towards Africa. And that we can do. And whenever one went, all that Africans want is leadership that is proper, as they accepted, you know, and they looked up to him to lead them to a better Africa. And in science and technology, wherever we went, or the other ministers said, yes, this is what we've got to do. We've got to improve our universities, our schools, and so forth, give our scientists the opportunities to fly. You know, in Nigeria, for example, President Obasanjo once called all his scientists from abroad. Something in the region of 500 high-level scientists from Nigeria who are in Europe and North America came. They said, here we are. If only the government can support us. They couldn't all come because something in the region of 10,000 high-level Nigerian scientists and engineers are elsewhere. They are not in Nigeria because they don't have opportunities. Some of them worked for NASA. Some worked for Boeing. Some worked for, all these great companies all over the world. All we need is to give them the opportunity, and then they will fly.
That's true.
And the problem is not with the children in our schools, for example, who are not achieving in maths and science, but it is because we are not giving them the opportunity. The problem is not with the children, it is with us. We are not giving them that. So if Africa could just believe in itself, believe in its capabilities, and in its own children, its sons and daughters, this continent will be able to look after itself and contribute to the rest of the world, but it must be at peace with itself first and foremost.
Thank you, Daniel Mangena. Let's reflect on that great son of the soil, that great Pan-Africanist, whom Steve Biko once referred to as God. And Mamunsiki Biko always shares that story that, when Biko comes into this room and that Robert Mugabe said Sobukwe is in that room, and then he says, "Hey, no titula fakant." That's how much respect Biko had for Sobukwe. Reflect with me on Sobukwe. I know you have already, but let me just give you a minute or two. And his contribution, him as a person, and his impact as well, and his thinking.
I've never met him in person.
For sure.
But my colleagues, including Steve and Bani and others, met him. He was already, he was first on Robben Island under that section of, and then he was banned and restricted to Kimberley. They visited him. They had discussions with him. They told me about their discussions with him, and how deep he is, and how he will sit there. There is a sense in which when they describe him, I see Steve, because Biko was such, he had a huge frame, and when he was in a room or when he enters, you won't miss him because he was just so big,
Sure.
But he will be so quiet in meetings. He will sit at the corner and listen. Good listener.
Sure.
But when he makes an intervention, the intervention will be so profound that you ask yourself, why was this guy quiet?
Sure.
Yeah. And so they tell me that when they visited him, he will sit there and listen and ask questions about what they are doing and so on. And then he will give advice. And he'll give his thoughts about what they are about and so on. And how he didn't have any heirs. How he was 100% committed to the cause of liberation. You shake him. He was completely immersed in it. And he believed in that cause. And he believed in the African personality. And he believed that and in our abilities to get out of the morass in which we are as a people. Of course, then I've read, I keep complaining to a lot of people, especially PAC friends, that there isn't a sound. He's not recorded anywhere.
Sure.
There's never heard his voice. Of course, and the best book I've written about him is this Benjamin Pogrom book.
Yes. How can men die better?
Yeah, I've read it twice in my life, and been talking to Joe Tlhole and them and say, when are you writing? Writing. You know the man in person. You were with him in the trenches. Please write. They say we're writing. I say, but you are aging. You know, so later you won't be around. Please, let's have something written by somebody who was with him in the trenches. Just as when whenever I talk to Mbeki, I keep saying to him impatiently that, right, you know, there are so many people who have written about you.
Definitely.
And so on about you. What are you saying with your own voice, with your own, you know? Right.
And the latest is the Mbeki I knew, and you know, people are reflecting on him, and speaking about, I'm sorry for interjecting that, Mangena. We had him here advocating Ngai Toby. Next year should be publishing a book where he is writing on Sobukwe, but specifically his trial. So
that would be good.
That's going to be quite brilliant. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, he did promise, because I think everything has been done, but I think they are looking into publishing it next year, sometime in 2021, and that should be quite. But once again, this is somebody who's reflecting on. They've interacted with the material, but I think it would be something if we could have somebody that interacted with the man, and that is your point.
Yeah, absolutely. But we must write. We must write as much as we can, tell our stories. And those who can must turn these stories into television programs, into radio programs, into whatever it is, so that we know ourselves much better.
Sure.
Doing at the government. Yeah.
Sure.
So, a pity that Sobukwe himself has not written a book. Although there are speeches that we can dip into. He was a great man, and incidentally, he's not being treated well by this country. We are not treating Sobukwe well.
Sadly, and I mean, come to think of it, Sobukwe's birthday is the same as the late President Ndate Mandela's day of passing, and that is the 5th of December. And but the 5th of December became more known, and it still is more known because Mandela died on the 5th of December, and yet there is this great African, and who was born on the very same day, and it's quite sad. It's quite sad how the victors always write history, but that's another topic for another day. And,
it's in our head. Sure. If only, you know, we have got gold, precious individuals like Sobukwe, but we don't treasure them.
Yeah. It's sad. Maybe as our generation, we need to. You know, one. I mean, I want your reflections on this. We know because affiliation and historically and in terms of ideology with Azapo, but I would argue and say that while Azapo has done a lot to contribute towards the perpetuation of Biko's memory. But the truth is, one of the reasons Biko is celebrated today, even outside the country, is because people have actually done their best to make sure that he is not only located within a political party, such that he's at the mercy of the growth or not of that particular political party, and that is why, and I was arguing this with one of my Azapo friends, that is why Biko has consistently, or at least his ideas have consistently been impacting the world, even though his political home you cannot say the same about. And I'm saying the same thing about Sobukwe, that maybe we also need to be intentional about locating him, not limiting him within the PAC as the political party, and making him what he was, an African and somebody that contributed to who we are, even if we don't belong to PAC. Your thoughts on that?
No, it's absolutely right. We can't, it will be an injustice to put Sobukwe in a PAC bottle and put it in that party and say that's where he belongs. No, he doesn't. He's an African, and he's a South African, and he belongs to all of us.
Definitely.
The same with Steve Biko. He doesn't belong to Azapu. He doesn't belong to the Black Consciousness Movement. He's our son. He's the son of this country. So he belongs to all of us. And that Azapo has commemorated him since the first year after his death. Azapo has commemorated him without fail, kept his memory alive and so on. But so did other people.
Definitely.
In this country and elsewhere, all over the country. And not had anybody in Azapo who said that Biko belongs to Azapo and Azapo only, and other people have no right to him. Now, that would be an injustice. It will be an injustice. A big one. Yeah, so personally, I would be horrified by anybody who would think, just as say Mandela, he's the son of our soil. It's not, the ANC might say that you are affiliated to them and so on and so on, but he's our son.
He's our son, definitely, definitely. And it is that thinking that you're talking about. And I'm also looking forward to that book, Fixing Our Heads. And as we are wrapping this up, oh man, I wish we could. I mean, we've touched quite a number of things, but I know what you are currently reading at the moment. Let me allow you to share with us another great Son of the Soil, of course, and that you are currently reading. Share. In fact, before we even talk about what you are currently reading, talk to me about the value of reading. And I mean, this is something that you have been doing since high school. And talk to me about that culture and how it has affected and impacted you and prepared you as a leader and continues to do so. Your reading patterns.
Reading, apart from opening your intellectual vistas, it also disciplines you. You know, it helps you to know that at a certain time I'm going to read. It might be a newspaper, it might be a book, it might be whatever it is. And all of us need to have some kind of discipline in our lives. That's the first thing that it disciplines you. You know, if I've read, just like if I have not brushed my teeth, I know I should brush my teeth. It's a routine. It's a way of living. But this one, the other thing is that it teaches you the world. It teaches you the idea. It opens you so that you can listen and learn about what other people are thinking. And you decide whether you agree or you don't agree. You are not ignorant. You know? Even if you don't read books that are about economics, about history and about it, but in every book that you read, you learn something. Even if it's about romance or whatever the case might be, you learn something. You learn new ways, you know, and so on. So reading, it's terribly important, and it teaches you culture of all sorts of people. But if you read about your own people, you know them better, you know about their culture better, and you know where you come from better. Tembecker writes his book, The Land is Ours.
Yeah.
You know, he's talking about land. But when you read through that, you get history.
Sure.
You know, you get to learn about where we come from as a people.
Sure.
You know, we are not people of 1994, of 2000, and so forth. We come from very far, and and you learn about the method. Say, the fees must fall. People, our youngsters, would know what their grandparents were doing ever since colonization started, and how they were trying to interact with the issues of the land, the lawyers and the amakosi and so on, what they were doing, and how when I look at it today, they are so non-whitish, quote unquote, you know.
Sure.
What are they doing? What are they sending delegations to the Queen, and what the hell do they do? But at the time, those were their methods. That was their time.
Sure.
So that's why I think that even our youngsters, as today, as they fight for decolonized education at their universities, they would know where they come from.
Sure.
The struggle doesn't start and end with them. So reading will teach them all those things about Sobukwe, about Biko, about Mandela, about Hinza, about Zikuku, and so on. They will know about them.
About Dikgang Moseneke and that. So talk to us. What are you currently reading?
Yes, I'm reading All Rise.
All Rise.
Moseneke. I'm left with 2 chapters now.
You're almost done. You're almost done.
Yeah, of course. Then I will be calling him to talk about the things. And for example, you know, we just see these judges and the judiciary. He gives us a clue, you know, by reading, gives us the clue what happens behind the scenes. It's not everything, but judiciary is an opaque area for most of us.
Definitely.
You know, we see these people in robes who come there, and there is lots of politics in the background.
No, definitely.
Yeah, in the judiciary, the fact that he was overlooked, for example, you know, and judges also have personality. They are not just mechanical people who interpret the laws, but they also have character and personality, and there is a lot of politics behind that.
Definitely. It was so. When did he become? Do you still remember when he became a deputy judge, president? I mean, chief. Do you remember the years? I don't remember, but that was during the administration of Mbeki, right?
Yeah, during the Mbeki administration.
Yeah.
He became was a judge before then of the High Court.
Yeah. No, definitely. All right. So that's what you're currently reading. And your favorite African destination, Dr. Mangen?
Pardon?
Your favorite African destination?
Oh, it's Mali.
Mali. Okay.
And that's why I'm so troubled by the fact that they are fighting, they are doing coups and so on. The culture, the lot of culture that you get there. When you, I still have, when I visited them, they have given me a lot of things, including clothes, you know, their robes. And I have them here in the house. They are part of my wardrobe. And their cultures are going way back. Just wonderful to see.
So Mali, and your favorite meal or dish? It doesn't have to be African.
Oh no, the pap and benachut. Yeah. And
Perfect benefit. Yeah. Benefit. And sure.
Awful. Yeah.
Yes.
Well done. Wonderful. And incidentally, I love it so much. I went to read about it.
Really?
Offal, the organs
Yes.
of animals are more nutritious than muscle meat, than steak.
No ways.
And in my book, and imifino, the vegetable people go and they go and get not cabbage, but that the ones that grow up wild and so on, and our people grow up imifino and so on.
Yeah.
Very rich. So when you eat the heart, intestines, giblets of the chicken and so on.
Amatumbu.
Wonderful. We're all in there.
Oh man, okay. That I was just in class as well now, and thank you for that.
I went and did research about that, scientific research about that.
Sure.
And,
That's quite eye-opening, I must say. And then you're
professor in at the University of Cape Town, of nutrition. What is his name? Yeah, and he talked about that and said that the best thing that our people can eat, especially in poor areas where there is a food scarcity and deficits, offal is number one.
Sure. Wow. Okay. Thank you for that. And then your music. I don't know how much music forms part of you. Favorite musical artist or genre or song?
No, just good music. I'm not that choosy.
Sure.
Miriam Makeba, Huma Sekila, Kaifa Seminya, Nina Simone, there and so on. It's just that the new music that youngsters follow now.
Sure.
No, I can't jig that. I really don't understand.
Sure. You leave it to us.
Yeah.
You leave it to Mangena. And Dr. Mangena, your favorite quote and or words put together, or even mantra?
I can't think of any.
I've always loved, and I end these conversations with it. Sobukwe's "Remember Africa," and it's so easy to forget Africa, and the only time we remember it is when we are complaining, when we think about wars, and but to be deliberate about the remembering Africa, even as we make decisions daily.
Absolutely.
And definitely. Dr. Mangena, thank you so much. I mean, you've given me almost 2 hours of your time. I know you are busy, and by the way, you look. I keep saying that to you. You look good, and you absolutely look good. 73, going strong, and I thank God for your life, and I thank God for your impact, and I pray that God continues to bless you with more health, and that you continue doing what you have been doing for the last 73 years, because we still need more of you. We still need more of that clear mind.
Thank you very much. Stay blessed yourself. And
thank you so much.
As I said, you are what you eat.
Yes, you keep saying that.
There are the genes, what your parents have given you, but the rest is up to you.
Sure.
What you put into your mouth determines how you will shape in terms of health. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mangena. Ladies and gentlemen, I trust that you enjoyed that conversation. Thank you so much. And 1 or 2 announcements. And next week, Ooh, I'm looking forward to this. This has got to be one of my best friends that we're going to be having next week. A young academic, Professor Willie Chinyamorindi, and incredible guy, an incredible guy. And you can go Google him if you don't know him. And we're going to be having him on the Real Dialogue. In fact, in November, we're going to be having more of a youthful guest list. And I trust that you'll be blessed. And once again, in the words of Robert Sobukwe, I remember Africa. May God bless you.